I'm not saying like, oh, you got to see it because, you know, Civil War is going to happen. Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name's Blaise.
And my name is James.
And this week we're talking Alex Garland's brand new film, Civil War.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go, 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 go!
God bless America.
Civil War is A24's biggest hit. It's about a journey across a dystopian future America, following a team of military journalists as they race against time to reach DC before rebel factions descend upon the White House. So this is a movie that was causing controversy on TikTok, I guess you can say. Had a lot of people hyped, but then the movie came out and a lot of people are like, well, it's not what you expect. And it's kind of what you and I expected. It's an A24 Alex Garland movie. We weren't expecting an action movie to lean one way or the other, but A24 has always been super great at advertising their movies, selling it to get people in the seats to go see it in theaters. And I'm glad a lot of people are checking it out. Might leave some people disappointed depending on what kind of movies you're into, but if you're into Alex Garland movies in general, you're probably gonna, get what you expect. What are your thoughts coming out of it?
Is Civil War an exploitation movie? I mean, just in the fact that it exploited the fact that people that are interested in politics saw the trailer and were like, my side's gonna win. I want to see the movie, so I feel like it might slightly be an exploitation movie because it definitely did exploit a group of people that maybe aren't familiar with A24 movies, maybe aren't familiar with, the current state of cinema, and we're just down to see like a crazy action movie. Because I rewatching the trailer, with that knowledge, I'm like, okay, I kind of can see where people are coming from, that this seemed like it was going to be about, whether it was the politics or whether it was the action, maybe one of those two things. But hopefully both were going to be in the movie, I think, is what people were thinking. And I mean, like you said, I don't think either of us were going to this film expecting either of those two or even wanting either of those two. That's not particularly the movie that I like, is one that entirely wears, its political beliefs on its sleeve. But I mean, maybe that's some subset of people's interest in films. I think Sound of Freedom did pretty well at the box office, and for some reason that's a political film.
Which we still haven't seen. If you want us to review it, let us know in the comments below. We're happy to give that movie a watch if there's a demand for it. But yeah, Civil War. We didn't review Men when it came out last. No, actually, that was 2 years ago when Men came out, I believe. And, like that movie, I think for a misstep, it's still a very good misstep of a movie. It's definitely my least favorite Alex Garland movie, and this one definitely was like a step up from there. I still think Annihilation is his strongest movie. A lot of people might say Ex Machina is, or a lot of people also forget that Dread is technically his first film, but there were some issues on why he doesn't have a director's credit within that movie. But I really enjoyed this movie. It's one of the best of the year. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I was actually pleasantly surprised that it focused, just heavily on just more the addiction of just like that adrenaline rush that we see these journalists get. It's definitely more along the lines of like Apocalypse Now versus, like a lot of like divided political movies that you might have got with like The Sound of Freedom. I haven't seen that movie, so might not be the proper comparison, but that's just my initial thoughts coming out of it though.
Yeah, and I think we could expect that from an Alex Garland movie, especially, I mean, he started his career pretty hot And then, once he started directing, obviously Ex Machina, a lot of people really love that movie. Annihilation, I think we were talking about it before we started recording, but that, we both really enjoy that movie. I know it was a huge box office bomb and probably was a setback for his career, but I think he's finally got, this is A24's biggest budget. He's finally got the chance to kind of prove himself with more toys, I guess you could say. And he's definitely paid off, because I think this film for A24 made, the most they've ever made at the box office in opening weekend, and it also staved off all its competition for the second week in a row. We'll see where it goes, from out there. I mean, by the time this comes out, we'll know, but regardless, I think he's going to get at least another shot with A24 with something with a bigger budget, hopefully somewhere else as well, just to see what he's more capable of. I think he's definitely one of the most interesting directors, working today. Although I was not a fan of Men, but yeah, I think the other projects that he's done are more interesting. This one, I would say I did really enjoy this movie, but it would probably be like a third for me, but I did really enjoy this film, everything that it said about photojournalism. I don't think it was fairly broad strokes, obviously, but it definitely felt like it was an important movie, because the way that journalism has kind of been attacked, specifically in this country as well as around the world, to kind of see it, for that lost art form that I feel like people just don't want to believe is, still existent in a way.
Right. Yeah. I was actually surprised by how kind of straightforward this movie is, because a lot of Alex Garland movies, a lot of stuff is like left for interpretation. Like Ex Machina, for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward movie, but there's still a lot of open-ended questions within that movie, and still, some thinking questions within there where you're meant to have like discussions. Annihilation, a lot of that, and definitely a lot of it in Men. Like I still don't even understand what was really going on in that movie, but this movie for the most part is pretty straightforward. Like a lot of I hate to say, like, dumb idiots might, like, from mainstream crowds might get confused by some of the ways certain characters handle certain situations. But, overall, it's a pretty straightforward, simple story. But I appreciated that. And I think it's Alex Garland's strongest cinematography. All his movies always look fantastic. And even though this movie, like, the color saturation isn't like anything crazy or anything, just a lot of the shots were just like very fantastic, and it almost comes off like a horror film too, which I loved about this movie. Like I'd never felt like so intense in a movie since Love Lies Bleeding, even though that's just a few weeks ago. But I'm really loving that, like, that tension was able to be created. And we've been saying constantly we need mid-range budget movies again, and I know A24 said they were looking to spend more money on their movies in the upcoming years, which I applaud if it's going to be more mid-range movies like this. $50 million movies. 50 million is cheap by all means. Well, no, sorry. It is cheap for like a film like this or something. And like, I hope more movies like this keep coming out, more $30 to $50 million movies, because those just don't exist anymore. It's either $10 million horror films or $200 million action movies. And, if we can get more stuff along these lines, like, great and stuff.
Yeah, I'd love that as well. The only thing is, to play devil's advocate a little bit, is if they could, I think the budget for this was probably around 50 million. I know that they made 25 million at the box office that first weekend. I'm not really sure what they ended up with, but the problem, I guess, would be that like 30 to 50 million, can the return be as much as if they made something versus something for 5 million? This, I think, was more of a broad strokes, kind of trying to appeal to a wider audience through their marketing, although I do feel like it was kind of exploiting that. So I don't know if, like, the population that isn't really familiar with A24 pictures, if they're gonna then now see that and be like, they already stole money from me in a way, because I didn't get the movie that I wanted or that was marketed towards me. I'm not really sure. I think that could be something that comes back to bite them in the butt, but yeah, I hope that that's not the case, because I do think, like, I know that there are people that went and watched this movie and just didn't take anything away from it, which I felt like this movie, like you said, is very straightforward. I don't understand why you know, you couldn't take anything away from this movie whatsoever. But, you know, it's this movie's clearly not about the politics, and that's not really the things that I would have enjoyed about the film overall. But yeah, I think that this movie really was, you know, an interesting kind of look into that journalistic aspect and trying to stay, you know, impartial while at the same time laying your life on the line. So, you know, it's definitely something that I would recommend people checking out, because it's just something that I'm not saying like, oh, you got to see it because, you know, Civil War is going to happen. But yeah, I think there's other things to take away from the movie.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, hopefully it does do that. Like A24 trying to bring art house into, you know, mainstream cinemas. You know, they we've talked about it constantly with just like how they misadvertise their movies. A lot of people walk away upset, but, you know, it's working. It's getting people talking about them, and they're getting more movies, and I'm glad that they're being successful. You know, we talk crap about them here and there, but, you know, they do know what they're doing. And, you know, if Alex Garland keeps getting work, then I'm excited, just because we've loved his projects for the most part throughout his career. Even like, you know, some of the writing stuff that he's done, like he also did 28 Days Later, Sunshine. A lot of people forget about that. And, you know, one of those great directors that just went on to make stuff solo now and is doing just fine. So let us know what you thought about Civil War. Go ahead and have a Civil War down in the comments below. Tell us what you thought about it, what side you were on. Are you on the Western Alliance side of Texas and California, or are you on the president's side? It's a great way to help support the show.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, be sure to catch all our social media links down below. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as our own personal Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.